Hello everyone. So today we have all assembled over here to discuss the important topics of the chapter chemical reactions and equations for the grade 10. Right? So we'll be discussing about them. Hello Vishesh. Okay. So hi Vedant. So here on the screens you'd be seeing about there is a mind map which includes all the topics which we have covered in this chapter, right? It's a kind of very easy chapter. So in this chapter we have begin with the first thing, that is the chemical reactions, and we all know what are the different observations which are required for seeing whether a chemical reaction taking place or not. So these are your change in state, change in color, change in temperature, and evolution of gas. Fine. After this, we have gone for the factors which are affecting the chemical reactions. The different factors which are affecting the chemical reactions are pressure, catalyst, light, and heat. After this, you guys have also studied about how to represent a chemical equation. So there are two ways of representing a chemical equation. It could be a chemical equation or it could be a word equation. Okay, so in word equation, we generally don't write the formulas, we generally write the words, we generally write the names of the chemicals which are participating in the reaction, whereas in a chemical equation, we represent it with the formulas of the chemicals which are participating in the reaction. After that, we have also covered that the equation is of two types, that is the balanced chemical equation and an unbalanced chemical equation. In a balanced chemical equation, we generally follow the law of conservation of mass, and that is the basic reason for balancing a chemical equation. And in your exams also, that is really important to balance a chemical equation. After that, we guys have gone for the different types of chemical reactions. And in the different types of chemical reactions, we have seen there are two types of chemical reactions, exothermic and your endothermic reactions. In exothermic reactions, we have seen the heat is generally released, whereas in your endothermic chemical reactions, the heat is generally provided. Next is your different types of reactions, which include your combination reaction, decomposition reaction, displacement reaction, reduction reaction, and your oxidation reaction. Okay, so in combination reaction, as the name is suggesting, different substances or two or more reactants, they generally combine to form one single product. And in such cases, the heat is generally released. And we all know that this combination could be of your two elements. It could be of one element and one compound, and also of one element and one compound, and your two compounds, sorry. Then comes the decomposition reactions, which are generally your endothermic reactions because they require breaking of one reactant into two or more products. And they are endothermic because they require heat. Next is your displacement reaction, which can be again classified into two categories, your single displacement reaction and your double displacement reactions. Your single displacement reactions include your salt solution of one metal. And in that, when we add another metal, then according to the reactivity series, it simply replaces the salt, simply replaces the metal from the salt solution. In the double displacement reaction, basically there is exchange of ions, and also generally there is a formation of precipitate, and such reactions in which there is formation of precipitate, we call such reactions as precipitation reactions. And the last type of is reduction. Last type of reactions are reduction reaction and your oxidation reactions. The reduction reactions are those in which there is gain of hydrogen and loss of oxygen. That means we are adding hydrogen and removing oxygen. And the next one is your oxidation, in which, as the name is suggesting, oxidation. That means addition of oxygen and the removal of your hydrogen. If suppose in a reaction, both the things are taking place together simultaneously, then such reactions are known as your redox reactions. We also have studied two important things, the corrosion and rancidity. So corrosion, that means when the metals, they generally react with the oxygen present in the atmosphere and get corroded and the properties change, whereas rancidity, it takes place generally of your food materials. That means the food materials, they generally get spoiled up and they release foul smell and the taste change. So this was all about the topics which have been covered in this chapter. Fine. After this, let's move on to the next thing, that is the type of questions which are generally asked from this chapter in your board exams. So the type of questions are basically two types, that is your theory-based question and your practical-based question. The important topics which are again covered in your theory-based questions are the balancing of a chemical equation. That means in your exam, you can be asked about to balance a chemical equation where you'd be given an unbalanced chemical equation. The next thing is the color of precipitate. You would be asked about what would be the color of this particular type of precipitate, which would be formed in a particular double displacement reaction. The third thing is your reaction type. You can be given about various reactions, and you could be asked what type of reaction is this, whether the reaction is endothermic, exothermic, combination, decomposition, displacement, single or double displacement, oxidation, reduction, or redox. So you could be asked about the different types of reactions. Okay, and the last one is the formula and the state of all elements and the compounds. You could be asked about the formula of the different reactants or the products which are participating basically in a reaction. So these are the important topics from which you could be asked about a theory-based question. The next is your practical-based questions. So according to your CBSE syllabus, you have these practicals listed in your syllabus, and you have to go through them. So the type of reactions with respect to these changes which are taking place: action of water on quicklime, action of heat on ferrous sulfate crystals. Shreyas, you have to study the precipitation reactions, all those which are mentioned in your syllabus, in your NCERT. And here we'll be giving you a list also in the video, in the session, that which reactions are there in your NCERT compiled at a particular place. Fine. So the iron nails kept in copper sulfate solution. And the last one is reaction between sodium sulfate and your barium chloride solution. So you have to study all these 4 experiments. In your action of water on quicklime, we all know that quicklime, it reacts with water to form your slake lime, that is calcium hydroxide. And there heat is released and the reaction is exothermic as well as combination. The next one is, I'm sorry. The next one is action of heat on ferrous sulfate crystals. We all know ferrous sulfate crystals are hydrated. They have water in them. And when we heat them, then the water is removed and it becomes anhydrous. And the color of the crystals, it changes from light green to white. The next reaction, the next practical is your iron nails kept in copper sulfate solution. We all know that when the iron nails are kept in your copper sulfate solution, then your iron displaces copper from its salt solution, because iron is more reactive than your copper. And due to that, there is a change taking place, which is your single displacement reaction happening over there. And as a result of that, the color of the solution changes from blue to light green. And the last practical based question could be asked from your reaction between sodium sulfate and your barium chloride solution, which is an example of your double displacement reaction. And also there is the formation of your white colored precipitate of your barium sulfate. And you can also call this reaction as precipitation reaction. Okay, fine, Tushar. I'll be soon asking you questions. This was just a basic idea. So now on the screens, you're given the important reactions listed from all the chapter. So on the left side, you're given the balanced chemical reactions, and on the right side, you're given the reaction types. That means into which category will they form. So this would be kind of helping you up to summarize the whole reactions of the chapter at a particular place, and will also help you out to revise the reactions in one go. So this is one of the table, and this is your another table, which would be giving you all the reactions. So you have to go through all the reactions of the chapter and also check whether they belong to which category. So this is a summary of your all the chapters, all the reactions of this particular chapter. Moving on to the next thing, that is the last year board question. So a 3-mark theory-based question was asked in your board exams from the topic of decomposition reaction. Let's see what is the question. The decomposition reactions require energy either in the form of heat or light or electricity for breaking down the reactants. Write one equation each for decomposition reaction where the energy is supplied in the form of heat, light, and electricity. And this question was asked in your last year board exam, that is your 2018. So can anyone of you tell me what are decomposition reactions first of all? And then we'll move on to the examples of the decomposition reaction with respect to your light, heat, and electricity. Is there anyone who would explain what is a decomposition reaction? Correct. So as I already told you that decomposition reactions are those reactions in which breaking down or decomposition of a particular reactant takes place, and it basically provides two or more substances. Correct. So now let's discuss about the example of your thermal decomposition. So can you give me an example of thermal decomposition? So in your thermal decomposition, we have an example of calcium carbonate, which is already solid, and on heating it up, this symbol, that is your triangle symbol, this is basically your symbol for heat. It basically gets converted into calcium oxide along with the release of your carbon dioxide gas. Can anyone of you tell me what would be the state of calcium oxide formed in this reaction? What would be the state of calcium oxide formed in this reaction? Right, it would be solid. Similarly, we have again a photochemical decomposition. That means light would be required for the decomposition of the reaction. And the photochemical decomposition, an example for such kind of your decomposition reaction would be your silver chloride, which is solid, and on when sunlight falls on it, then it will get converted into silver along with the release of your chlorine gas. So what would be the state of silver over here? I hope that would be solid, as it is already known to you. And the last one is your electrical decomposition. And in electrical decomposition, you can also mention your electrolysis of water. We all know that the state of water is liquid, and when electricity is passed through it, then the bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen breaks up, forming hydrogen gas and your oxygen gas. So in all these reactions, what is happening basically, in all these reactions, the substance, one of the reactant is again splitting up, is breaking down to form different reactants and to form different products, right? See, for your first reaction, that is your thermal decomposition, calcium carbonate is breaking down to form calcium oxide along with carbon dioxide. And there are many other reactions, like you can have AgBr also instead of AgCl. You can have FeSO4 also, and all such type of reactions are listed in your these tables along with the different reaction conditions. Okay, moving on to the next question, that is your practical based question, which was asked in your last year board exam. So this question generally carries 2 marks, and the question was asked from the topic of from the experiment of your sodium sulfate and your barium chloride. So let's read what the question is. What is observed when a solution of sodium sulfate is added to a solution of barium chloride taken in a test tube? Write the equation for the chemical reaction involved and name the type of the reaction in this case. So here we have a solution of sodium sulfate, that is Na2SO4. And since it is a solution, so we'll write aqueous in the brackets to mention its state. Along with, we have barium chloride, BaCl2, which is also in aqueous form. When we add Na2SO4, that is your sodium sulfate, in the solution of your barium chloride, just give me a minute. Fine, it should be BaCl2. That was a typing issue. Fine, so it's BaCl2. It will be giving you a formation of precipitate of BaSO4, which is white in color, along with the formation of NaCl. So tell me the states of both of them, which is a salt form. What would be the state of both of these salts, BaSO4 and your NaCl? For NaCl, the state would be aqueous, that's correct, supreme. And for BaSO4, the state would be obviously solid, because it is the precipitate which is being formed that is settling down at the bottom of the reaction vessel. We all know that this reaction is an example of your double displacement reaction, as well as it is a reaction, it is an example of your precipitation reaction. So I hope this question is also easy and is clear to all of you. Let's move on to the next question, which is again asked in your sample paper question issued by your CBSE for this year. So the question is, what will be two observations made by the student when iron fillings are added to your copper sulfate solution? Let's first write down the reaction which is taking place. Fe, which is solid, when added to your copper sulfate solution, that is your CuSO4, and the state would be aqueous, it will be giving you FeSO4, which would be again aqueous, and along with your copper, which would be deposited as a solid. We all know that this reaction is an example of your displacement reaction, which is single displacement. Right. Now tell me the color of your copper sulfate solution. The color is obviously blue. What would be the color of your FeSO4 solution? Correct. It will change to green. So one of the observation would be change in color. So one of the observation would be change in color from blue to green. What would be the next observation? What would be the color of your copper deposited? Here, single displacement because only one metal is replacing another metal from its salt solution. Here, no exchange of ions is taking place. What would be the color of your copper deposited? Brown. Very good, Denema. It would be brown in color. So the color of your copper deposited would be brown. That's correct. So these are the two observations. One is a change in color, and next one is your reddish brown deposit on your iron fillings. So this is about your sample paper question issued by your CBSE, include having your practical based question. So generally from this chapter, basically you have a 3 marks question expected from theory and a 2 marks question expected from your practical. So generally this chapter contains the weightage of 5 marks, and the whole weightage of your chemistry is generally of 25 marks. So from this chapter, it's generally expected to be asked in your CBSE exam 5 marks question having 3 marks theory and 2 marks your practical. Now let's move on to important points to remember. What are the different important points we should take care of while preparing this chapter? So the points to be kept in mind while writing a chemical equation. The very first and the most important thing is always write a balanced chemical equation for any of the reaction. Whenever you're writing a chemical reaction, then do take care to balance all the atoms of the reactants and the product. That means the atoms on the left and the right side of your equation should be balanced in order to follow the law of conservation of mass. And the next thing is mention the state of reactants and products always. Never ever skip mentioning the state of your reactants and the product. That is the liquid, solid, gaseous or aqueous. We have generally only 4 states to be mentioned in your chemical equation. The third point is also mention the condition of reaction above or below the arrow. For example, if you have any of the conditions, the temperature conditions, for suppose that the reaction occurs at a particular temperature or the reaction occurs under a particular pressure. So you should mention always the name of the catalyst, pressure, temperature to over there above or below the arrow in the chemical reaction. And the fourth point is using the symbols like for the precipitate, we generally mention it with a downward arrow, the arrow that is like this, and for effervescence, the arrow in the upward direction. So these two arrows generally tells us whether a precipitate is being formed in a reaction or whether an effervescence, that means a gas is being evolved in a reaction. So this makes generally the reaction more informative and reduces of your chances of losing the marks of such type of information. And the last point is never forget to mention the heat changes taking place during the reaction. In order to tell whether the reaction is endothermic or endothermic, guys, never ever forget to mention the name, the heat changes which are taking place during the reactions. So that was about your important points to remember in the chapter of your chemical reactions and equation. You can ask me up, Gopi Krishna, what are you not understanding? Okay, so this was about your chapter chemical reactions and equations, and to know how Merit Nation can boost your preparation for science with Power Pack Premium courses, you can go on this link. This link is already mentioned. The URL is already available in the description below. Okay, fine, Yug. I'll surely explain this. Let me complete this first. So the URL is already available down over there in the link. And you can also go for the top 100 questions from this chapter. So Nikhil, catalysts are basically those substances which generally increase the rate of the reaction, right? Or they can even slow down the reaction. So such substances which do not participate in the reaction, but they control the rate of the reaction. They do not get consumed in the reactions. So these important points were, don't forget to balance the chemical equation. Always mention the state of the reactants which are participating and the products which are formed in the reaction, whether they are solid, liquid, gas, or aqueous. And the next one is mention the conditions of the reactions above or below the arrow. Don't forget, for example, okay, let me give you an example of a reaction which is already mentioned over there. So for example, this is the first reaction which is mentioned. Already by these numbers, you can understand that this reaction is balanced. By the states, that means in the brackets, you have mentioned the solid, liquid, or gases. This states signify the substances are present in which state. This reaction is an endothermic reaction. So I have mentioned heat above the arrow, which tells you. And also, the last thing which you have to take care of is to write the arrows of upward and downward to explain whether it's the effervescence, the gas is released, or a precipitate is formed. So this was all about your chapter, chemical reactions and equations. So I hope you all enjoyed the sessions, and if you want more such sessions of the different chapters, so please do like the videos and subscribe for the Merit Nation channel. With this, we'll be ending the session, and I hope you all enjoyed the session and it was quite informative.